Hi, welcome to my video on simplifying trig expressions in number 1. And if you look over my unit on trig, the unit on trig 1, you'll also see trig expressions simplified. So let's work out some of these. Simplify each. 1 minus cos squared, well, that's sine squared theta, because cos squared theta plus sine squared theta is equal to 1. Therefore, 1 subtract cos squared is sine squared. This is the fundamental identity. Cos squared plus sine squared theta equals 1. Number 2, we have a multiplication, but the cos of 90 minus theta and is a cofunction. So the cos of 90 minus theta is the sine of theta. And cot, we normally change cot to sine and cos. So cot is the cos theta over the sine theta. Sine is over 1, we're multiplying fractions, so we got a numerator and denominator the same, so we cancel out. So that gives us cos theta. Number 3, secant theta minus tan theta. Well, we have done that 1 plus tan squared theta equals secant squared theta. So that means if we take secant squared and subtract tan squared, we should equal 1. So if you know this identity, then this comes from it, equal to 1. Another way to do that is change everything to sine and cos if you can. So secant is 1 over cos theta. So secant squared is 1 over cos squared. Minus tan is sine over cos, but tan squared is sine squared over cos squared. Notice the two fractions have the same denominator, cos squared. So we 1 subtract sine squared. You get the same denominator, so we subtract these, but they're not like terms, so we leave it as 1 minus sine squared. And 1 minus sine squared is cos squared. Coming from here, take 1, subtract sine squared, move it over, you get cos squared. So 1 minus sine squared is cos squared divided by cos squared theta. And cos squared divided by cos squared cancels out, and we get a 1. So there's two ways to do it. Knowing the identity here is the fast way. If you don't, then you got to work it out this way. Number 4, the sine of theta plus 180. When we go through 180 degrees, the function is not changed, so that's the sine. So the sine of theta in the first quadrant is positive, but this, if you add on 180 to a first quadrant angle, you'll get a third quadrant angle. That means that the sine in the third quadrant is negative. And secant is the reciprocal of sine. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so it's 1 over sine. And again over 1, sines cancel. So we get a negative 1 times 1. So that's a negative 1. And negative 1 over 1 is just negative 1. Number 5, we have a complex fraction. And they're all signs there. So the simplest way to do a complex fraction is to find the denominator for the numerator and the denominator and multiply by. So it's a complex fraction because it's a fraction in a fraction. So the LCD for the numerator, which is here, is sine. The denominator has sine, so the LCD for the numerator and denominator is sine. So if you multiply every term by sine theta, that's what I'm doing, multiplying every part by sine. So the sine cancels, and I get 1 negative. So sine theta times sine theta is sine squared theta. And we cancel here. 1 over sine times sine, to cancel out, we get 1. So 1 minus sine squared is cos squared, and over 1, so that's cos squared theta. That's one way to handle it. And the other way to handle it would be to simplify the numerator, simplify the denominator, and multiply by the reciprocal. So if we look at 1 over sine, so we look at 1 over sine minus the sine all over 1 over sine. So the numerator has to make this one fraction, we put that over 1. So we multiply by the denominator here is sine. So we multiply this one by sine over sine. So that gives us 1 over sine theta right here. Subtract sine squared over sine. And the denominator is 1 over sine. So we simplify this numerator here. So that's 1 subtract sine squared over sine. Common denominator is sine, so we subtract these, but we can't because they're not like terms. So there's the 1 over sine. So this long bar is doing the division. So now we have two fractions, so we multiply by the reciprocal, which is, so 1 over sine is sine theta over 1. The sines cancel, so we get 1 minus sine squared, which is cos squared. So there's another way to do it. But the easier way with complex fractions is to multiply the top numerator and the bottom by the same denominator, which is the common denominator for the numerator and denominator. Okay, let's continue. Simplify each. Number 6, we have 1 over sine, so pi over 2 is 90, so that's the sine of 90 minus theta, and again with 90 minus theta, cofunctions is the cos of theta, and 1 over cos theta, you want to call it secant theta, so you could have 1 over cosine theta, which is also another name for secant. Number 7, we have the tan of theta plus 180. Again, adding on or subtracting 180 doesn't change the trig function. And this is the tan of theta. But the tan of theta is in the first quadrant is positive. If you add on 180, go to third quadrant. So tan in the third quadrant is positive. So positive in first, positive in third, so it's positive tan theta. Now we have cot of, again, pi over 2 is 90. 90 minus theta, same as here. We have to change cofunctions. So the cofunction of cot is tan theta. And we got tan theta times tan theta is tan squared theta. And that's one name. We could also say that could be sine theta over cos theta. So we can put an or there. So if you said tan squared theta, or if you said sine squared over cos squared theta, same thing. Number 8, we have cos cubed beta plus cos beta sine squared beta. Notice we have cos here and here. So I see cos beta as being common. So cos cubed divided by cos is cos squared. And factor out cos beta in this expression right here, we get sine squared beta. And cos squared beta plus sine squared beta is 1. So this becomes cos beta. Again, you have to factor. Cos is common to both of these expressions. Number 9, I made up this one to be a little bit extra. And let's see, we got a negative theta. So let's look. Let's see what we have. We have a plus and a multiplication. But what we'll do, let's change the negative thetas to these first. And let's change the sign of 180 minus theta first before we do PEMDAS. So we have the sine of negative theta. So the sine of theta, okay, the sine of theta is positive. The sine of negative theta is negative. So we got the negative of negative sine. Again, that negative right there is right there. So the sine of theta is positive. Sine of negative theta is in the, if you want to say theta is in the first quadrant, negative theta would be in the fourth quadrant, and the sine is negative. Now how about the cos of negative theta? The cos of theta is positive. The cos of negative theta is in the fourth quadrant, is also positive, so that stays positive. Plus, secant is 1 over cos theta times the sine of 90 minus theta is, when we go to 180, we do not change the function. And the sine of theta is positive, and the sine of 180 minus theta is in the second quadrant, so that's positive. So we have them all changed. Now let's simplify. Negative times a negative is a positive, so that's the sine of theta over cos theta. And this is 1 over cos times sine. So that's, when you multiply 1 times sine is sine theta. Cos times 1 is cos theta. Both fractions have the same denominator, so we keep the denominator. And we add the numerators. They're the same. So that's sine theta plus sine theta is 2 sine theta. And that's an answer. Or you could have sine theta over cos theta. You could also call it tan. So 2 times sine theta divided by cos theta is also the same as 2 times tan. So that's a little bit on simplifying and dealing with the videos that we did with adding on 180, subtracting 180 or 90, cofunctions, etc. So just a review. And again, if you like my video, click the like button, click the subscribe button, visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Just one word. Thank you for viewing my video. Hope the video can help you. Bye-bye.